Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. What the world needs now is love. More love.
Stars literally aligned.
He's always been the one.
There's someone out there for everyone.
I'm Nancy Regan, your host on the Canadian Love Map. We are on a journey to uncover and share love stories of all kinds.
He's never forgotten to bring me flowers.
We're hoping we're going to give a little good news to this world.
Even in these dark times, the life continues to go on.
It's all about compassion, devotion, adventure, and of course, love.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs love.
This is the Canadian Love Map.
Well, love is the most important thing.
I think we both just felt like the sky was the limit. It's like we're finally together. We can finally do this.
People often stop us and say, oh, those DNA sibling harmonies, my God, they sound so beautiful. And feels like it's almost one vocal sometimes, because we meld into each other when we sing.
Shellie and Tobin and Danielle MacDonald are sisters originally from New Waterford, Cape Breton, whose love of music has always kept them connected, even when Danielle married into the military and moved away for 15 years. Their dream of performing together was shelved until the day Danielle called Shellie to say, "I'm coming home, let's do this." It may have been a long wait, but the results have been worth it. Now they're making waves, sound waves that is, as hearts of kin. This is the Canadian Love Map. Shellie and Danielle, I'm so excited to have you in the studio. I wish I was there with you.
We too wish that, Nancy.
We do wish
but
you were here with us as well.
Just excited to be here.
But we'll take what we can get.
Yep.
We got you on a big screen.
I've got a cold. And you know what? These days, I'm still very conscious. There's no way I want to slow down your performance schedule or your lives at all by giving you any germs. So we're doing it virtual. And you two are doing it in every possible way. What kind of ride is this for you right now?
Oh, it's been incredible so far.
I would call it an unbelievable ride. And a good example would be, just a couple of years ago, if someone had said that in a couple of years we would be sitting here and Nancy Regan was going to be interviewing us, I would be like, no way. Right?
Wouldn't believe it.
It's been a really unbelievably fun, rewarding, exhausting, joyful, scary
roller coaster of emotions, but always in the best way.
Yes.
In the best way.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, we're learning a lot.
So let's talk about that roller coaster and when it began. But before we get to your career and your relationship professionally, let's talk about how your relationship started in the very beginning.
Well, we didn't have much choice in the matter, did we now?
We were a little forced into the situation when my sister had it all made in the shade and then a little bouncing girl came into the picture here and then she had to be big sister.
I did. I got to be. It's funny. I'm 4 years older than Danielle, so I can remember when she was born, right? And I don't remember very much, but I remember the day that she came home from the hospital, and I was so excited because I can remember my mom being pregnant, and I was going to get a new brother or sister. We didn't know back then, but I remember being so excited when she walked in the door, and she handed her to me. I sat on a pillow on the couch, and the next thing you know, I had this beautiful little bright-eyed baby girl who was my little sister, and it was honestly the best feeling in the world.
Cutest thing she ever laid eyes on, let me tell you.
Like you really were, you still are,
and humble to boot.
Did she come out singing?
She came out singing, Nancy. Yes, she was definitely wailing. That's for sure.
You knew she had a good set of lungs on her then.
Oh,
That's right.
indeed, she did.
I got
Indeed,
to be
she did.
I got to be the spoiled little baby of the family who always gets my way, and she got to be the oldest one who kind of led the way for us all.
The pioneer.
Yeah.
It's true.
And you're not the only ones in the family, right?
We have
That's
a
right.
middle, yes, our brother is the middle child. So, yeah. We like to say we're all special in our own way because I'm the oldest, she's the baby, and my brother, who's the middle, is the only boy. So, hey, we've all got an angle.
Yeah, I've heard about his guitar skills.
Oh, yes. I feel like we talked about that. Yeah, he could. He hasn't progressed much more since we talked last, Nancy, but
He could if he wanted to. If he wanted to.
he could. He definitely could. Yeah. I just wish he was interested.
Yeah.
So I met you two last year, I guess, when you were showcasing at the East Coast Music Awards, and it was pretty exciting. And I guess I've been wanting to get you on the show ever since then because I think it's such a unique relationship that you have. Tell me a little bit more about growing up together, and then we'll move into what you're doing now.
Gosh, yeah. It's been a ride. That's for
It's been a
sure.
ride. I feel like we've always been relatively good to get along. Like there hasn't been crazy teenage cat fights when we were younger. Maybe the odd, you're wearing my shirt or something like that. But we've been we've been tight from the beginning, I would say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, growing up, we grew up in Waterford, just on the east coast of Cape Breton. Very like mom and dad, so loving. We had like so much love, no money, but I feel like we had everything that we needed, right? But when I look at us kind of coming up together, I think about, I've always been really proud of us because I feel like we've always been really resourceful and also like just very grateful for opportunities and just even just to be together, we have been through quite a bit together, and I think it just makes us stronger, and we have learned growing up together how to and not push each other's buttons, and I think that that's been really, really important for us.
I think we've got it down to a science now.
We do. We're good at it because
we navigate pretty well around each other.
Well, and I think the whole sister thing, it can work for you or against you, because I think that sisters can either be at each other's throats, right? Or the closest friends in the world. And I think that I'm very happy to say that we're the latter, right?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Yeah, but
well, it's interesting because you were 4 years apart, and sometimes that's a good gap.
Yeah.
If you're closer, you can be more competitive. But I'm also curious as to whether you were very different children. I mean, different from each other.
Oh,
Let me be clear.
To this day, I'd say, yeah, we were night and day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like she said,
Really?
still are.
Well, there's something to be said about the firstborn. I see it with my own kids even. My oldest one is such an old soul, and she's got her head on her shoulders. And then the second one comes along, and she's like, here I am. I'm the baby. Spoil me, love me. I get away with everything. So I feel like I had a little bit of that going on.
Her
when I
children
was-
describe us, right? That's
They
us.
do. And I say my youngest is my karma. It's my karma, right? She's a little me. Little bit of me.
Oh, I tell her that. Yeah. She's like, I don't know what I'm good. We call her Hurricane Lila.
Hurricane
She's the
Lila.
baby of the family, Danielle's youngest. And I say, when she says, what am I going to do with her? And I say, she is you. She's just the spit out of your mouth,
That's
Danielle.
what I get.
It is. It's her karma. Definitely.
And Shellie was just like my oldest and also her oldest, which was always like years beyond her age. She just felt like she was this old soul who she knew what to do. She always knew what to do.
I felt I had to. I felt it was my responsibility.
Thank goodness, because I leaned on you a lot for that. So I'm grateful for that.
It's interesting.
You stopped me in my tracks with your expression, and I want to zero in on it because I would think a lot of listeners across the country and beyond, because we have listeners in many countries at this stage. I heard you say they were like the spit out of your mouth. And I remember that is a very East Coast, I think Cape Breton expression.
It is, right.
And I remember when I used to be on TV and pretty recognizable, and I was out with my then maybe 12-year-old son, who is my oldest, who looked a lot like me, still does probably. And we ran into a viewer who said, oh my gosh, I feel like I know you. And look at him. He's like the spit out of your mouth. And
Andrew was very, polite. He didn't react at all. But the moment we walked away, he sort of leaned to me and said, "The spit out of your mouth." So I just had to highlight that
charming East Coast saying.
I
yes.
never thought of how that would fall on new ears. That was not familiar with that term, but yeah, that could be pretty jarring for a child. Maybe.
Yeah. And Hurricane Lila might be a great name for a song.
Oh, don't you think we haven't talked about that?
It very well could be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping to give you a prompt there.
Yes.
What part did music play in your childhood?
A biggin.
We always say that we grew up in a Nova Scotia kitchen party, a Cape Breton kitchen party, really, which is the truth. Because our dad played guitar since we could walk, since we could hear. When we're in the womb, he's playing music to us, right? So we've always kind of been surrounded by it. I didn't pick up the guitar until I was 13. And that was after Big Sissy had started to dabble with it, and I picked up an interest in it. But it's always been very prominent in our life.
Some of my earliest memories are of I was probably, 2, 3, just a little toddler, being passed around. And this is I'm sure that this is an East Coast thing, I don't know, being passed around to give all of the adults at the kitchen party a kiss goodnight, right? So they'd pass me around and I'd give everybody a hug and a kiss goodnight, and they'd shuffle me off to bed. And I'd go up to bed and I could hear the party and the music from the kitchen below. And it's, I don't know, I think of it as a beautiful memory, I do. But that was very typical in our home. And people, it was a lot of fun, a lot of music. And I just feel like, how could we were immersed in it? How could we not continue with it? It's been a lot of fun. We're still having it. So
yes, we are.
So did you sing together as you were growing up, as you became teenagers? Was there a duet thing going on, or was that 4-year difference too much of a gap for that?
It was very much, we didn't do anything as far as, I guess what we call rehearsed or polished. We dabbled in it as kids. And like Danielle said, we really didn't start to pick up the guitar until we were teenagers. And I feel like at that age and stage, while we sang a bit with our dad, but we kind of took different paths with the music. Danielle, I always say that Danielle is like, oh gosh, she was the one that really pursued it more passionately than I initially. And, I kind of got into, I had a young family, which worked out well for me because they're older and independent now. So I like that. So I kind of went that way, while Danielle really, really dove into the music and brought me back to it. So I would say that we definitely went in what I would call 2 different directions, but kind of came back together at one point.
It was hard to be away from my sister for so long because my husband and I moved away when I was 20, and we wanted to sing together and we wanted to be together so bad. So when I would come home on weekends, we would get together, we'd bust the guitars out. It's our favorite thing to do, right? Why wouldn't we want to do that? So it was hard to not be able to do that every day. But once we moved home and settled in, that's when we knew it was time. We can finally do our dream, basically.
Well, she moved home to do the thing. She moved home to do the music, which I think is important too. But yeah, But
let's talk about timelines, because, you talked about when you were 20 and then moving away, but you haven't talked about how long that gap was between moving away and coming back. You were in the military life, right? Moving from place to place?
Yes. Yeah, we just moved back 3 years ago. So that was, I guess it was in my early 20s when we moved away. We were away for about 15 years. Mm-hmm. So it was hard. It was hard to be away from doing the thing that we were jonesing for it, we just wanted to be together and sing music. And it was like, I always said to my sister, like, people talk about winning the lottery. I'm like, if we could just move home, that's my lottery. Like, can we just move home? And then we finally, the stars aligned and we decided to make the leap and move home, and I won the lottery.
And I would say the stars didn't really align. I feel like you got, she called me to tell me that she was moving home, and it was quite a surprise. Like, I knew that they wanted to move home, but things weren't working out, or the timing wasn't right, or waiting for this or that, or the job or whatever. But she called me one day, and she just, the phone call was, we sold the house, we're moving home. Like, could you imagine the just
it was not something that was really
tears.
planned.
so many
it was not
tears.
really planned. There was just a couple. You know what? We got a few. My husband and I, we got a few nudges from the universe telling us that maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for us to take control and move home. Our dad had been sick for a little while, so we wanted to make sure we move the grandkids close to him. And we kind of threw caution to the wind and sold the house and moved home. And it was the greatest decision we ever made.
It's been
So
a
was
game
part
changer.
of that decision personal and part of it professional because you knew at that point we want to actually create a band?
Yes. Yeah, very much. 50-50, I'd say.
Oh.
But I mean, even our music feels like it is. It's all personal, really, when you think about it.
And we wanted to do this so bad, Nancy. We formed the band. We put the label on, the name on it before she moved home. So she was still in PEI. I was still in Cape Breton, and we were like, let's do this. Let's make the band. Let's do the thing. And it was so hard because she would come home, and we would coordinate a show. It's okay. We're going to play a show at such and such a place, and we would rehearse online over the internet. We like to make the joke we were doing the virtual jams before they were cool, right? So we did them, and then it would be so anticlimactic because she'd come home and it would be so fantastic, and then she'd leave again, and we'd have to wait another 5
Several
months before we did something. We're like, oh, we couldn't get any momentum. So when she came home. And this is the ironic part. She came home during the pandemic, so we still couldn't really play the music. So many challenges, right?
It's true.
But
it made it a little easier to put things together and get our set lists together and write music together and
just
make a solid plan.
Being in each other's presence, right?
Yeah.
Because when we started to write our music, we were, again, virtually over the internet and the phone. But for us to finally sit together in the same room, there's something really magical, I think, that happens when you really feed off of each other's energy. You can bounce things back and forth. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. And then I feel like that was just, it was a game changer. It was a whole new world. I think we both just felt like the sky was the limit. It's like we're finally together. We can finally do this, and it's something that I will never take for granted. Like just the fact that we get to be together because we spent so much time apart. I don't think that our relationship today would be as solid as it is without that time apart, right? If that makes sense. So
we talked about this the other day and how like that time apart that we spent, as hard as it was at the time, I wouldn't change a thing because I know that I cherish our time together and even just living on Cape Breton Island, because a lot of people, there's some people that, I don't know, maybe they take it for granted. Maybe there's nothing here. There's nothing to do. But I'm like, this is like the greatest place on earth. Like, I'm so happy to be back and living there. I'm like, it's just fantastic. Yeah.
We love our
I'm
island.
married to a Cape Bretoner, and I've never met any of that kind you talk about that say, no, it's not really that big a deal, Cape Breton.
I think
I've met only the other kind.
Because they've moved away, Nancy.
Yeah.
They've gone.
Yeah.
Only the ones who love it. I think all Cape Bretoners have that. They're like homing pigeons,
Yes.
and they think no place is more beautiful in the world, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
You talk about the magic that's in the room when you write songs together. And that makes me think about having heard not too long ago that sisters or siblings who harmonize have like an unfair advantage over everybody else because you share DNA. Do you think that's true?
I do. Those blood harmonies, there's nothing like them. It's just, people often stop us and say, oh, those DNA sibling harmonies, my God, they sound so beautiful. And I mean, we feel it when we sing together, it feels pretty smooth.
Oh.
It feels like it's almost one vocal sometimes, because we meld into each other when we sing.
I do. I believe it. And I would even take it a step further. And I would say not only the sibling harmonies, but even, the way that we think and the way that we react to certain things, because we've grown up together, we have that bond, we know, we're conditioned the same way. So, it's nothing for us to be on stage. And if something goes awry, we can, it's almost like we have a little bit of mind reading that's happening.
Oh, yeah.
So
With one quick glance, we can tell the next one's move,
Let's
so we can follow along quickly, right?
It's pretty magical. It is.
Advantage,
It
I would
is.
say.
Yeah, I dig it.
I dig it too. Works for
I
me.
dig it too. I want to know more about what happened once Danielle moved home and you really decided we're doing this? And right away, did you say, is it going to be a full-time gig, or what was your mindset like?
Oh, do you know, Nancy, we were so excited and so inspired just to be together that it was, it was like all or nothing. It's like, let's just dive in head first and do all of the things.
We were like full throttle. Let's just go for it. Why not? Let's go for it now.
Absolutely. And it was, so Danielle does music full time. I have a full time day job and I do music full time on the side, I feel like. So there's,
that's an accurate way to describe it.
Right. Yeah. But no, I feel like it was such an interesting thing because once we were able to be together and really kind of settle into, let's plan some things. What do we want to do? How do we want to do it? I think what we did is we naturally settled into the roles that we were more inclined for. And Danielle mentioned something important earlier, when she said that we're actually, in some ways, we're very similar, but in many ways, we're polar opposites. We're very different. And we appreciate how we complement each other because her strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. So, with the and I always call Danielle the musical brainchild she's the artistic director of the group. And I just I sing what she tells me to sing and I play what she tells me to play. And I'm quite happy to do that. But then when it comes to like the grant writing and applying for showcasing and do the business end of it, I that's my spot. And I do, that's my contribution, right? So I do that as well. And we just, I don't know, it's so funny. We always say we're like two halves of the same brain and put it together, we got one brain. So it works.
You're all together, you're one brain.
We're
right.
one brain.
That's right.
Yeah, one brain.
Yeah.
Thank God.
And I think that's a really good partnership as well, where one is more right brain, more creative, and the other might be a little more logical and linear.
Yes.
And that probably helps you, that harmonizes you in life as well as music.
Absolutely. Well, we're finishing each other's sandwiches.
We do.
So it's been about 5 years since that decision to really take a run at this. And how has it unfolded? And has that unfoldment surprised you?
First of all, holy smokes, has it been 5 years? Wow, it has been about that. Mm-hmm. Time flies when you're having fun. So that's one thing there, I guess. Means we're doing something right.
Yes.
If the time is flying. But.
Gosh. And it's as far as, my gosh, nothing, it never ceases to amaze me or surprise me. It's part settling into what you expect it would be and then still learning so much. And I think I'm proud of us because I feel like we're coming at it from the right place. And I feel like we're open-minded enough to know we take our lumps. We talked about the roller coaster. There are times it's so celebratory. There are times that you just want to cry in your bedroom because you think you're not doing what you need to be doing. It's very up and down. But I think that we have been really great at being open-minded enough and I guess taking the lessons for what they are and we're just trying to have fun, to be honest with you, because you know what? This industry, it can really eat you up. It can really eat you up. There's so much. And it's one of the only industries, there's no ceiling. Like you can just keep going as far, what is the ultimate goal? It's whatever you want it to be. There's no place where you stop and say, I've done it all. We'll never be there. So I think our goal has always been to have as much fun as we can. And that's a lesson that we've learned over the last couple of years. And now, even when we decide whether or not we want to play a show, it's not even so much, to a certain extent, how much can we make from it? What about the revenue? What about the exposure? But the main question that we ask ourselves is, will this be fun? Do we want to do this? Is this going to be a fun thing to do, right? And if the answer is yes, then we do it. And if the answer is no, I don't really want to do that, then we don't do it. So we kind of trust our gut in that way, but it's been fun.
That's the sweet spot of life.
Yes.
Really,
we think so.
When you can recognize that, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And when you can set those kind of boundaries and say, we want to do what we love, we don't want to do what we don't love.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well,
it's a game
and
changer.
it's true because not all, we've done things that we didn't enjoy. Let's face it, not all shows are the same, not all places are the same, not all projects are the same. We've done stuff and we thought, let's not do that again, right?
I've seen us walk out the door and be like, thanks so much, never coming back here again. Have a great life.
I mean, yes, we do the things that we want to do. We do the things that we want to do. And it's so far, that's been serving us well. It's been serving us well.
Yep. We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centres. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centres are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. And you've also figured it out as you've gone along. So tell me about the recording side and the other pieces that you've actually, just kind of studied and learned along the way.
Our first EP we recorded with a local studio, and we had a great experience. We had a great time. We learned a lot. For our second full-length album, we decided that we wanted to build our own recording studio and do it out of our basement, because how cool is that? How fun is that?
Amazing.
It's been a learning curve, and it's been very. I've just learned so much from it. Both of us have, really. I mean, I'm doing the producing side for the most part, but it's been, I don't know, it's been like magical, I guess you could call it.
And of course, again, it was Danielle's idea to produce and record independently. And when she first told me, we were just hot off the heels of that first little 5-song EP that we had the studio produce. And, so we learned a bit through that process. But when she told me, she said, you know what, I want to do, I feel like we can do this. I want to do this. And I was scared. I was scared to death, because I thought, my gosh, that's a big, I knew what kind of an undertaking it was. And I knew that she did not have any kind of experience other than the little bit that I had with her. Mm-hmm. But I always trust her instincts. She hasn't steered me wrong yet. And the next thing you know, she was, jumping online to do some education, and and her husband Brent has been a huge support to us as well. Built the studio. He had that built in a hot minute in the basement, that was a game changer for us to have that.
Even just to have a door to close in between us and the kids, so we can get some practice, some rehearsing, some writing, recording, whatever it may be. It was important to have that door there.
Yes.
How many bolts are there on the door?
Only half a dozen.
Not enough. Not enough. It doesn't keep them out, Nancy.
No, it doesn't
keep them out.
Well, I'm a mother. I get that.
You understand.
And it's interesting because you mentioned the online learning, and one of my kids went to Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Yes.
And I noticed in looking through your material that you did your online study through Berklee.
I did, yeah. I was thrilled when I saw that there was a software program for Pro Tools, which is what I use, being offered through Berklee Online. I was like, Berklee? I didn't know this was available to us little people here on the internet. So I jumped on and took the course through that, and I learned quite a bit through that. And we also, we worked with a producer back home, a mix master engineer, Jamie Foles with Sound Park Studios, and he really brought our album to right up to snuff, where, right where we wanted it to be. Yeah,
absolutely. And learned so much. And we're still learning. I mean, we're infants. We're just infants in this industry, for sure.
Yeah.
But like when we look back at what we've learned, even just with producing that album ourselves, like just to have full creative possibility, like we can do what we want with it. We can play around with it. It was really liberating, I think, right? Just to have that creative control. And then also, Jamie helped with a little bit of added production with some great suggestions that were always bang on. Mm-hmm. It was great to have that. So I feel like we had the best of both worlds.
Yeah, like things I never would have thought of to try out. You know what I mean? It's always good to have another set of ears on it and another suggestion. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good collaboration.
Was there a point at which you went from doing covers to writing your own songs, or were you always writing your own songs?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I started writing before Shellie got into songwriting. So when Brent and I lived in PEI, that's when I started writing a bit and started kind of gigging around over there in Summerside, doing some solo stuff. So we did have a couple original tunes, but when Shellie and I got the band started, it was primarily covers. But we were just playing the bar scene at the time, and they just wanted to hear covers anyway. So
it was good.
It kind of worked out good. And then we'd sneak an original in there every now and then. But then we started hammering down with our writing and trying to.
Well, and what's interesting about that, I think, too, is that, when we talk about growing up in a musical family, being immersed in music, nobody in our family was really a songwriter. Like when we talk about our dad, who was definitely the biggest inspiration, to why we're doing this today. He wasn't a songwriter. He was an avid music lover and an avid musician, but, didn't write a tune. And songwriting was not something that really crossed my mind until my sister kind of put that bug in my ear. So I'm really glad that she did. And it's funny because I wasn't sure if I could do it. You wrote a few beautiful tunes, and I was just like, wow, you're a songwriter. That's amazing. And she's like, you try. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. But yeah, it's better when you have two. It's better when you have two. Yeah.
So who were your inspirations? What musicians did you look to because you loved the way they wrote songs or the way they sounded?
We were a sucker for John Prine, is probably our favorite songwriter to date. Our dad played a lot of John Prine, Chris Christopherson, but then we also liked our teenage era. We were like big Sheryl Crow, Jewel, Fleetwood Mac. Those types of artists. Yeah, lots of. Yeah, we got a little grittier, I guess, with
the stuff that we started to play when we learned to play guitar in our teen years. That was fun because it was like, wow, we can play the covers of these songs that we're listening to on our Columbia CDs now.
Columbia House. Yeah, Alanis Morissette.
Yeah, it's true, and it was a whole other world. Yeah, it really was. It really was. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And yet you had a lot of very talented musicians in your own backyard because you're Cape Bretoners, and a lot of models on whom to, build your careers. And I remember you telling me one story about a show you went to about Rita McNeil.
Oh, yes.
Oh, dear Rita.
Gosh, dear Rita,
at the Savoy.
If anyone has had an opportunity to see that, they know. And for those who haven't, I hope that they come back with another run. It was such an amazing show. I know, first of all, it was great just to be just back immersed in her songs and the story. And I learned a lot about Rita's life. And she was also a big influence. Mom was such a huge Rita McNeil fan, so of course, we were as well. But I can remember there was one beautiful quote in that play that just you ever hear it just sticks with you, and it just it caught me. So and it basically said, someone in terms of songwriting, it said, someone out there has a wound in the shape of your words. And when I heard that, I just it just got me, and I thought about the responsibility of a songwriter. We're trying to make sense of our emotions. We're trying to tell it in a story that's relatable to people. And ultimately, it can give a sense of comfort and connection. It's like, wow, like you just articulated the thing that I'm experiencing, and I'm not alone, and you feel that too. Wow, you really said it. So I don't think there's anything more special in the world. I feel honored to be able to, to string a few words together
and have someone feel that connection.
It's really
a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing, and I think it's probably the most powerful driving force behind why we're doing this. Would you say?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely.
It's really a privilege.
And it's surreal almost, because when we started writing songs and people started listening to our songs, and then they tell us that, that song about like the soldier or whatever it is, I relate so much and I had tears, and I'm like, really? Words that I wrote? You felt that way about? It's like, it's still like, it's
very humbling.
It's humbling.
It's very humbling.
Like, to this day when people say it, I'm like, okay. I guess
we're on to something,
right? If you say so.
Yeah. I can really relate because, I was a first-time author with my book, and I went deep and got very vulnerable, and I was shocked. I use that word intentionally. I was shocked by the fact that the more personal you are in your writing, whether it's my kind or your kind, the more it resonates with a broader number of people. I would have thought, you had to be really general in order to resonate with a huge number of people, but the opposite is true. So the more vulnerable you get, the more it really lands for individual people out there listening or reading. And I wonder how has that been for you two as sisters, getting in the room to do the writing and having to really get raw?
I love that question. And it's something that we talk about, to be honest with you. And I think it's the reason that we work so well as co-writers, because we can tell, we're telling the same story. So when I'm struggling to try to find the words to tell the story that I'm trying to tell, she can help me because she knows the story. She's off, not always. Some of the songs that we've written are a little more personal to each one of us individually. But I think that's so true, and it's interesting to me because I think that it's actually sometimes it's difficult to find a story that hasn't been told before in general terms, but the idea is, and you just said it, Nancy, tell it from your perspective. So because, many people have experienced, different situations, but no one has experienced what you have experienced, right? So and you're right, the more personal and the more deeply, deeply you dive into the story and just get vulnerable, that's where the magic is. It is. And that's the key, I think, to having people connect with your story.
People really respect vulnerability, for sure. They want you to dig deep so that they can feel that, and there's something really special in that.
People want to feel.
They want to feel. People just want to feel. Yep.
They're begging for it.
You started the conversation talking about the roller coaster. And the roller coaster, as you said, comes with highs and it comes with lows.
Yep.
And first I want to talk about a high. I remember seeing on social media a post that you were one away from the very top of the indie Canadian country charts. Is that right?
Yes. That's where we peaked.
How did that feel?
It is where we peaked, but we're quite happy with that.
Number 2, hello.
Number 2, we're not hating that. We ain't hating that. Yeah, we were very happy with number 2 on such a national platform.
We just talked about this. We had Easter dinner on Easter at my home. Which was lovely, and afterwards we were just kind of chatting and I love to pump her tires every once in a while because I feel like everyone, we all need that little confidence boost, right? And we were talking. My husband, actually, Billy was talking about that. He said, look at what you did. You produced a song. It went to number 2 on a national independent country radio chart, right? Like that's something to be proud, because it's so easy to beat yourself up and say, oh gosh, I should be doing this. I should be doing. It's so easy to focus on what you should be doing and what you didn't get and what you did, right? Yeah. But it's important to celebrate the successes too, right? So thank you for saying that. And we're very proud of it. A couple little, country mice and with the
in the big city.
In the big city. I still can't believe it, but it's validating because like for us, like I said, we try to we're looking for signs from the universe. Are we on the right track here? And those are the signs, right? Mm-hmm. So we take them and we follow them. And I think if you can hook that flow, just kind of stay there. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
That's right.
Feels good.
Well, you talked about vulnerability and how powerful it is. And so I'm going to ask you about the lows that you've experienced together and how they have changed your relationship and how they've informed your singing.
Do you know what? I think a good place to start would be the title from our album. We call the album Beautiful Burn, and the idea behind that was we wanted a name that captured the sentiment of the highs and lows of life, because that had been our experience for sure. And I think it's interesting, and I think you'll probably agree, Danielle, when I say we've always lived our lives in, highs and lows. But I feel like since we started our music adventure, I feel like the highs and lows became extreme. They became very extreme, so more noticeable. But I also think that was interesting because those extreme highs and lows make excellent content for songwriting and storytelling as well. So I feel like I have to think that it's all meant to be. But yeah, like you heard us say that one of the main reasons that we Danielle moved home and we really started to kind of launch this music career when we did. Our father was ill at the time. We just lost him last year. It was a year ago on the 15th of March, right?
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. But we were actually we talk about that experience often, and because as we mentioned, he was the biggest inspiration to us, and so proud of us. And his death was for sure one of the most, if not the most difficult thing that we have had to endure together as sisters, as friends, as partners in life and love. And we sit back and we were talking about this in the car ride up here today, and we thought, we were able to be with our father, throughout his life, but also like in his last days of life. And we both said, what a privilege and an honor that was to be there. And it also, not only were we able to help him through that time, but it was very healing for us, because I couldn't imagine, well, Danielle said it, I couldn't imagine just, getting a phone call from another province that, Dad passed away. It was a totally different experience for us to be there and to see him through that and to take his hand and walk him to where he needed to go. And we got to do that together, Danielle and I. And I thought, what a beautiful experience, and it changed us forever for the better. We're not the same people that we were prior to that experience, and it's one that we do look at it as, when we talk about the highs and lows of life, like what an incredibly difficult thing, but to look back on it and say, wow, like look at how we've changed and grown and evolved, and it's just, I'm grateful for the experience. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask what you loved most about your dad?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm gonna throw, the first thing that came to my mind was his humor. He was such a lighthearted. Oh gosh, right up until the end too. He was very witty. He was very intelligent. He was very talented. He was so compassionate. He had the biggest heart in the entire world. Yeah. And yes, my gosh, that man he would make you laugh.
Yeah,
he would make you cry too.
He loved the dad jokes. He did love the dad jokes.
He did.
And we appreciate the dad jokes. I still use some of them for my own kids,
Oh yeah.
Keep the old man's spirit alive.
Yeah. And just the pride. He was so proud of all of his kids. Our brother, just the proudest.
Very
dad.
Family was always very important to him, and to my mom too. But they really instilled that into us growing up. Like my sister said, lots of love, not a whole lot of money, but you don't need it when you got the love there, right?
It worked. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I somehow I have this picture of him playing right now with Bruce Guthrow and Gordon Lightfoot.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that's inspired by a beautiful McKinnon cartoon.
Yes.
Bruce McKinnon, the cartoonist, did a really lovely one. But I wonder what you love most about each other.
Oh gosh, that's a
wow,
tough.
We've never been asked that question before. Good questions here, Nancy.
Well, it's the love map. We got to talk about the love.
That's true.
That's
it. True.
I would have to say, when I think about my baby sister, oh my gosh, she's something else. I think that my favorite thing about Danielle would have to be, I love that she's always been very authentic. She is what you see is what you get with Danielle. And I think when I look at Danielle's values, I think it's important to her to also not only to be authentic, but to let people, this is who I am, right? This is who I am. So I would say I love that. I love that about you.
Thank you, sister.
You're real.
Now it's time for me to say something nice about you, I think. No,
it better be just as good as what I said too.
I love when I think of my sister, I think of, since she's the bigger sister, she's been like the spearhead of my life. Like, I turn to her for everything. She is 100% my confidant. Like, if I have any problems or questions about anything, she's got the answers. Always. I can lean on her no matter what.
I might not have the answers, but I'll say something.
It's answers in my mind. Yeah, you always know what to say, sister. Yeah.
We always say, how do people do it without a sister? You know, it's all we've ever known.
Yeah.
So, but when we look at like, I don't know, like I look at an only child or even a sister with just a brother. And I mean, I know there's all kinds of different family dynamics, but I mean, for me, we made the joke. We were like, you know what? We think that we just had this soul contract. We were like, next lifetime, me and you, let's do it together this time. And I feel like we're like these
Twin
little
flames.
yeah, we say we're like these little twin flames.
We
Like
joke
we are
about it.
definitely meant to be doing this life together for sure. So it's just
like Thelma and Louise all the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
My shotgun rider.
Just don't go off the cliff.
No, we're not going to go off the. Okay, maybe not all
Sorry,
the way.
that's a spoiler for that movie, I guess.
Right.
But
Thelma and Louise half the way.
Yeah.
What is next for Thelma and Louise? What would you, if you could write your own story, and I have a feeling you can, you know, where would you be going next, and what would be the top of the mountain for you?
Do you know what? I was just, we didn't say this out loud, but I know that she'll agree. You know, we talked about having fun, and I think that, you know, we're both looking for, we want to be happy, right? And I think the happiness is found in the little things that you do every day. So I don't like to put a grand goal on there, but you know what? To me, happiness looks like lots of music and also traveling the world, which music can do for you, right? So between festivals and touring and gosh, sharing the music is, we want to share this music with the broadest audience possible, right? So whatever vehicle we can use to get there, literally or figuratively, I think that's the plans for us. But yeah, like I see as our kid, like Danielle's kids are still pretty young, so it's hard to go too far. But that's kind of what I see for us. You know, I want to get out there. I want to see some other countries. I want to tell some stories. I want to meet some people, because that has been one of the most exciting things about being in the music industry. I know you agree with me. We meet the coolest people. We really do. We really do.
Say, what a coincidence, because that's my vision too.
I know.
Let's go for that.
I know it is.
Well, I want everyone to remember the name of your group. So I'm going to end by talking about that. Hearts of Kin. How did that name come to you? And was it like instantaneous, or is there a story behind it?
It was almost instantaneous. We knew what we wanted to go for, because we are both McPhee sisters at heart. And we both have different last names. I'm a MacDonald and she's a Tobin, but we're still kin hearts. So we drew it from there. We did a quick Google search to make sure that nobody else owned the band name Hearts of Kin, which yay, they didn't.
Well, to be fair, Kin Hearts was our first choice, but that is taken.
It's taken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you know what?
Really?
I couldn't imagine being Kin Hearts now. I like Hearts of Kin.
I know. I'm glad it worked out that way, because I couldn't even picture it being Kin Hearts.
But just something we wanted when we decided that we were going to name this thing. You know, we thought, what's important to us? Because we felt that the band name was very important. We didn't want to just pick something out of the air. Mm-hmm. And we both agreed right away. We said we wanted it to be a nod to our familial roots, right? So something that, and I think that I love the band name. I absolutely adore it, to be honest with you. I'm so glad it wasn't taken. And people have said it. That wasn't taken. It's such a good name, right?
We're like, I know.
But yeah, I feel like it's important for even just our branding, because when people look at us, here we are, these two women who look kind of the same, right? And then you hear Hearts of Kin, right away people, without even hearing our music or our story, they already know a little bit about us. They're like, okay, they're obviously sisters or twins or something, and they're family and they're musicians. Okay, so they know a little bit about us, and then we show them the rest, right? I love the name. I do.
I do too. And I love the fact that it sends a message out to the world that you are heart-centered as well.
Yes,
absolutely.
And I would say that your roots are showing in the best possible way. And I'm so thrilled that you were able to take time away from your increasingly busy touring schedule to talk to us today. And I just, I know that a lot of listeners are going to join me in paying close attention, not only to the charts, but also maybe on Instagram, where you show up as Hearts of Kin, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
Gosh.
Thank you so much for having us here, Nancy. We were really looking forward to having a chat with you.
Yes, and this was almost as good as seeing you in person.
Yep.
So good.
I
Feels
know,
like
but
you're
I'm
right
so
here.
glad I didn't give you any germs today.
You're so sweet.
You're far too sweet for that. You wouldn't deserve it. So thank you two so much.
Thank you
Nancy.
so much, Nancy.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.